Good day, everybody. My name is Mike Blythe. I work with the Intellex team, and we're here today to have a discussion about AI, agentic AI, and agentic collaboration. And my background is about 30 years working with consumer packaged goods companies and retailers. So I've got a good idea of what the pain points are and the opportunities are. And I'm finding that the majority of my clients can spell agent, they can spell AI, they can even put agentic AI together, but many of them are learning about the opportunities to be able to build success and drive cost efficiency and even grow sales by the use of agentic AI, and in particular, agentic collaboration. So today we've got a panel of two types of people: business people who have lived this situation and technology people that have got an excellent solution for you to consider. So the purpose of today is threefold. One, to be able to have a discussion on what the potential outcomes are of agentic collaboration. Number two, demonstrate how Intellex, Aurora, and NEAR provide what you will find out to be an enterprise-ready agent collaboration stack. And then number three, position Intellex as the first Intellex Launchpad project, which will be successful for all players in here. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the participants in this opportunity that we're here today to discuss. Nick Afonsky is the principal of the Palomar Group. He's been in the consumer durables manufacturing area for 30 years. He's worked with a number of companies like Manugistics that are in the supply chain area, IRI and 5-1, which is a customer-centric retailing proposition with a collaboration platform. Charles Cassani is CEO of a Prima Group, and Charles has spent his life as an adventurer, trying to get companies to be able to understand the importance of consumer data and the implications for growing the business. And he's done that with Bridgestone, Walmart, HSBC. So he has a phenomenal background. Taylor Dersch has similarly got 30 years of experience. And Taylor has been with Walmart, Sam's, and JP Morgan. And he and I both knew each other when we were together at ANEA. So he's got a phenomenal analytics background. And finally, Gary Hawkins has been a friend of mine for 30 odd years. And Gary has been really an advocate of bringing intelligent customer analytics and now AI to the forefront. He's an author, he's an advisor, he works with the FMI in the United States, and he's written a book which you can see in the back, just behind his head to the right, called Bionic Retail, which is not publicity for him to sell, but it's just the idea that he's an author and an advocate. You'll also see Alex Shevchenko. Alex is CEO of Aurora, and we also have Dylan with us, who's partner of success for NEAR Foundation. So that's the team we've got. And the way we're going to structure this is I'll pose questions to the business panelists first, and then ask for comments from the technical team. One person I missed out is Alex Hillebrand. He's kind of brought us all together in this proposition. He's been working 5 years, so he's just a little older than the rest of us. And he's worked extensively in consumer packaged goods. He's worked extensively in retail. He's worked for the government. And so he's got a phenomenal experience. And I've always considered him a visionary in terms of the capabilities that he's brought to companies. So that's our game plan for today. So the first question, and I'm going to go to Taylor Dersch. If you're thinking about the agent frontier and implications for business, what do you think of the business processes that will shift from human workflows to agent-based workflows over the next 3 to 5 years? What do you think the blockers are? And what do you think the ideal agentic style must have in terms of attributes to be successful. So again, what do you think the shift is going to be? What are the blockers, and what are the must-have attributes?
Well, from my experience, one of the things that businesses are always looking to understand is just what is the strategic story for them. And that's a combination of, how they're operating, what's happening in the market, and there's a lot of moving parts. And getting your head around that has been something that they tend to, a lot of businesses hire outside consultants to come in and do that type of work, to connect what's happening across the business in different ways, to be able to generate the strategic analysis and stories that will help drive the business forward. And so as I look 3 to 5 years out, at what point in time is agentic AI and collaboration between different AIs working to replace that capability, or to severely or substantially augment that capability, so that it's within the control of the business and it's not just outside experts that they're bringing in. They actually have their own story to tell. That's going to require a combination of data coming together, understanding of business operations, the way people work. And it also is going to require, and I think maybe the hardest part of this is the training data to actually tell the strategic story. Like, where's that going to come from? How are businesses going to build that, access that, augment that, improve that over time? That's what I'm looking for in the next 3 to 5 years. I believe your mute's on, Mike. Mute's still on.
I think his mic is trying to get his mic reconnected. I think he was going to turn that over to you, Nick, and see whether you had a response to how you were seeing agent collaboration.
Yeah, for sure. So, one of the key shifts that we see working with a lot of mid-market companies is a shift from a lot of AI work that individuals are doing to what we're calling, what we're all calling enterprise AI. So how do you harness that capability from individuals enabling workflows for their, personal reasons, or work that they're doing, in their day-to-day activities for their company, transforming data, improving emails, and kind of routine activities, getting much more productive, but making the shift from all of us being prompt engineers in our day-to-day to migrating the low-hanging fruit, the big impact opportunities that are relatively less complex for companies to implement, moving those into an enterprise framework, so that it's no longer just individuals enabling their workflow for today, but it's for dozens or hundreds of people in these repetitive processes. So I think that's one of the big, shifts. I think one of the blockers, I think Mike was asking about one of the blockers. It's really understanding a company's readiness to make that shift, and across multiple dimensions. And as Taylor was saying, there are a lot of outside consultants coming in to help companies understand what their readiness is. But let's not forget that the fundamentals haven't changed. These projects, from our point of view anyway, are very similar to any IT project, where the data, as Taylor mentioned, the data's got to be there. The semantic layer, the meaning of the data needs to be established. Data privacy and governance rules need to be in place to support AI initiatives across a company. And these are things that have to be in place for pretty much any IT or software projects. The attributes, I think I mentioned there are a couple of key things. What our clients are interested in mostly is getting started with something that's going to drive significant impact for the business in the short term, and that's not going to be super complicated or complex, which is kind of a boundary or a frontier for agentic AI, because by nature those are typically very complex or can be very complex processes. So those are just a couple of observations.
So start with something digestible and then expand. Gary, where are you on these topic?
So I guess, what I'm seeing is, in terms of where we're seeing agentic AI deployed, I've seen installations in the financial area, accounting, bookkeeping type functions that can be largely automated, increasing work in the merchandising area around pricing, inventory, assortment decisions, and so on. And certainly in marketing, a lot of activity around marketing personalization capability. I think in terms of blockers, there's two big things that I'm seeing. One is Nick just spoke to, is the data, right? While retail industry has been talking about data and data quality for years, if not decades, it's still a mess. And, the vast majority of retailers still need to work on bringing their data together, unifying that data, getting it cleaned up. The other big blocker I'm seeing that I think is even more important is cultural, right? It's companies identifying processes, practices that have maybe worked great for the last 30 or 40 years, but are now ripe for change with all this new technology and capability. And companies have a tough time of letting go of, we've always done it this way type thing. In terms of attributes, I think as you look across the enterprise, there's certainly some number of activities, workflows that can be, largely, if not almost entirely, automated. But I think the bulk of workflows, the way I think of it, is in terms of augmentation. Where can humans come together with technology, employ all these advanced capabilities, but still have a human in the loop, if you will? So I think it's that augmentation, or, as I like to think about, business becoming bionic, right? A combination of technology and people.
Good points there. Good points. Charles, you've been somebody who's trying to make people think through the opportunities in this kind of a journey. What's your perspective?
I think everything that's been said here is pretty accurate. I think I've most recently been in retail when AI hit the scene, and I think the barriers are in the culture and in what you've been doing. There's so many people are paralyzed and can't figure out how to balance what I do every day and how to train this data or this tool to do it for me, and the different use cases. I think the opportunities are tremendous, as we've talked before, in logistics, in marketing, in communications, in real-time customer engagement. But I think today people are still, and given the current environment, still wondering how they're going to do the work they've been doing manually, at the same time learn how to use AI and the platforms and tools required. And so it's a balance. I think what I see the most progress is in slide preparation, is in graphics and reporting. But there's, as we've spoken in the past, tremendous opportunities in supply chain, in tracking shipments, and tracking destinations. But I just don't think the current corporate environment has made space for that and time for that, other than the handful of big retailers that are monetizing it tremendously.
Got it. So everybody is saying there's a clear opportunity. There's a series of barriers that exist, ranging from all the way from data integration, data management, right the way through the culture. But clearly, I think all of you believe there's an inevitable progress. And I think from conversations we've had, people who don't participate and don't get into the game early are going to be laggards and are going to be severely hampered from a competitive perspective. We're going to switch over to NEAR and Intellex, and one of the key things I think that companies will want is an intelligent technology support organization that understands not just the technology requirements but the business requirements too. So, given what the panel has just talked about, either Eric or Dylan, give some perspectives on what the architectural features of a large-scale multi-agent system require to be viable.
I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about that, because I think, starting with what Taylor said, it's important for those people who are not familiar necessarily with what an enterprise is to call out that when we're talking about enterprises, we're talking about organizations that have very permeable or unclear boundaries. In other words, who's in the enterprise and who's out of the enterprise is whether is sales going to participate with marketing, if we're talking about organizations within an enterprise or even across various enterprises as they try to work together. There's a lot of permeability about those boundaries. And anytime there's permeability about those boundaries, it creates a challenge when you're starting to think about how do we introduce agents, and how do we introduce agents that can collaborate together. How do we do that in a way in which the reputation of the agent or the experience of the agent or the expertise of the agent is clear to everyone who in that moment is part of the enterprise? And I think from our point of view, or from an Intellex point of view, that's where, when we think about the use of cross anchoring reputation, anchoring expertise, anchoring experience in a secure, immutable ledger, blockchain, and being able to have that kind of communication occur across blockchains becomes critically important, which is why NEAR and NEAR Intents to me is absolutely essential in formulating the kind of stack that deals with that enterprise boundary permeability. It's one of the things that, when I've talked to people who don't have experience in the enterprise and in the business world, the idea that businesses have to work together, but they hate each other, or they don't trust each other, they don't want to work together, that foundational principle is something fairly alien to people who don't necessarily understand the dynamics of, say, a supply chain or a business ecosystem and how that operates. I don't know, Dylan, or Alex, how you would think about that.
No, yeah, thanks, Eric. And no, I was just going to quickly say, one of the things that I really want to touch point on real quick is what I'm hearing from a lot of the business folks is culture, right? And AI is really at the center of the DNA at NEAR Protocol. So originally, NEAR started as an AI company, actually, when Ilya and Alex, different Alex, started the company a few years back. The whole goal was to teach machines to code, right? And so they found some issues in other problems when it came to micropayments for paying for data labeling and things like that. And eventually they said, okay, we need to figure out a better payment solution. So they started to work on what became the NEAR Protocol. After a few years, the ChatGPT kind of had its moment, AI came about, and people started using these LLMs much more frequently. When we came back to our roots, where Ilya, as one of the authors of Attention Is All You Need and the creators of this GPT technology, wanted to figure out the best way to kind of combine both worlds. So in terms of culture, NEAR front AI is something that we're talking about and thinking about day in and day out. On the technical side and the architecture side, I'm hearing Nick talk about things like privacy. I'm hearing Eric talk about things like multi-party coordination. These are things that are purpose built for blockchain. This is where blockchain can come in. You have a trust problem when it comes to AI and dealing with black boxes, but this is where blockchain comes in and enables trust among parties that you don't know.
Good point. Hey, Alex, maybe you'll make a quick comment on the role that Calix plays in this whole proposition, and why people who work with you will benefit significantly from it.
Yeah, so I would add to the things that people have been talking about, that there is a clear use case for a blockchain within the AI, and this is around just value transfers. That is something that is extremely important for businesses to be able to transact. And the blockchain is here because it's very easy to interact with it. The traditional financial system is not suited for AI agents to open a bank account and do the SWIFT transfer, right? And the blockchain is here already, so it has a chance to become a default mechanism of transferring value. And from that standpoint, what you don't want to do is to limit your AI agents to work with only single blockchain. That's why it is super important to have a solution that is above the single blockchain. This is what NEAR Intents is bringing. And Calix is a solution that is based on top of the NEAR Intents, which allows anyone from any blockchain to participate in the token launch events. And that's the core value that it adds to the NEAR Intents. From our side, we are absolutely keen on working with Intellex and bringing it as a first project to be launched on Calix as a cross-chain launchpad, and super eager to see how this thing is going to go and what Intellex is able to achieve in the future.
Great, thank you. We're going to shift gears now to a second area, and it's getting more specific in terms of business cases. Which are the business cases that we see are going to provide the most significant benefit? So, Gary, I'm going to go to you first. Which are the areas that are biggest benefit, and tell me why they're a benefit, and what things are going to break down that are typically breaking down in an organization.
So one area I would point to near term is marketing. I am seeing significant gains coming from applying agentic AI around marketing personalization, and impact in a couple areas. Certainly on resource savings. I'm thinking of one regional retailer that had a team of 5 or 6 people working full time, executing a personalized marketing campaign, and it would take them just about a month to cycle through the whole process. So able to do 10 or 12 campaigns a year. They moved that to an automated process. They're down to one person a couple hours a month. So significant labor savings in that. But it's the other side of that, though, that I think it's lost, because when you're applying AI and agentic AI here, you're getting much better decisions, right? So the quality of those decisions is vastly improved. And, I'm seeing significant gains to, basket size, visits, retention over time, and store engagement.
Excellent. I'm going to move on quickly just because of time. Charles, what is your hot business case? And
right, I think Gary stole it, but I can add to that. I think marketing has the biggest opportunity. There's tremendous lag time throughout the process. I think many organizations that I've been in have gone and brought in technology and customization, personalization platforms. I think that's great. It's just until that gets AI driven and you can have agents and automation and that is looking at actual return data immediately and then crafting the next campaign for that person moving forward. I'm not seeing that happen yet. I think people and organizations are bogged down in just the implementations right now.
Yeah, actually, I think on a broader scale, a lot are, but I think people are getting cost reduction, efficiency, and growing sales, and making faster decisions out of this.
Right.
Nick, what about you? What's your non-marketing case?
You're muted, Nick.
Okay, so Taylor, until Nick gets in here, Taylor, you're up. Please take your mute off.
Okay, well, Nick's up too, so I'll be brief. Yes. Here's my non-marketing but still marketing case. If marketing's getting that good, and I have no reason to disagree, it's getting better. Finally, the promise of personalization is coming to the fore because the technology enables it the way it has to be enabled for me to have a great experience as a consumer. But that's going to impact what my merchants need to do, and that's going to impact what my operators need to do. So I want to see how the optimization of marketing across the base is going to impact those groups. And that's the use case. That is the connect it back so that when you are communicating to me, there's not a supply chain issue that keeps me from getting the value you just promised. And the merchants aren't out chasing their tails over sales that should be built into their forecast because the marketing is so good. And I'll turn it to Nick.
Nick, you're going to extend that, and Nick, you're going to talk about suppliers involved in that, correct?
Yeah, sure. So quick example, where an agentic solution can just really kind of be that bionic superpower. With a private equity company, it's not necessarily a transactional use case as we were discussing before, but when we can go and enable a company that has a very expensive labor, think of a private equity investment company, and reduce the number of hours or minutes from 90 to analyze an investment memorandum to 3 minutes, the value starts adding up very, very quickly. And that's just the first step. The next step is to automate the response to the other investment banker on the other side about that inbound investment opportunity. So, and on and on. Another example, of a great agentic solution would be really transformative in terms of insights. So imagine having a conversation with your enterprise data. No longer, having to go 3-6 months to build a BI platform. You can put the power of the insights and defining what that looks like in the hands of the end user just by enabling them to have a conversation with their data, answer the question that they have in that moment in plain English with a chart and a table, but then it provides a roadmap for that business to add additional capability, whether it's an analysis of the historicals, whether it's a forecast or a customer segmentation that then leads into targeted marketing and better results on your marketing program.
Got it. Great example.
Those are a couple live use cases that we're working on right now.
Right. Hey, Taylor, can you just go back? This was really focused on use cases within a company, but when you talk about supply chain, inevitably supply chain involves manufacturers and suppliers. So tell me what the implications and opportunities are when you've got an ecosystem that actually adds companies, not to the particular company, like a Walmart or a Sam's.
Well, look, if a big part of my business is selling advertising on my digital platforms to my suppliers, right? Then I have to be able to give something of value back to the supplier. And I think agentic AI gives an opportunity that's bigger than what they've been receiving so far. So, yes, I want to see how my campaigns are doing on my sales, but I also want the intelligence that comes back that says, when is my opportunity as a supplier best within this ecosystem? And if I'm a supplier, I want to be able to compare what's happening across all the platforms that I'm working on, right? So I need my own kind of intelligence that says, hey, I'm investing here with Amazon, there with Walmart, here with whoever, and how do I optimize that? So there's this really interesting kind of negotiation that's going to happen between these platforms and the suppliers on the platforms. And if I'm going to attract, as a retailer, more suppliers, I need to give them more of the intelligence that helps them win so that I also win. And I think there's a new mindset that AI can open up to us that we don't currently have about how to do that.
Right. And, we're doing a lot of work in the retail media network arena, and it's devoid of math. And what you're suggesting is almost the equivalent of a trading desk where you've got marketing funds, you want to allocate them across retailers, and you want to figure out the best return. So an interesting challenge. For the technology team, talk a little bit about the minimal shared memory that agents need to coordinate in this kind of a process, because obviously understanding context, understanding what's happened before is a base to be able to create thoughts about the future. So what's your view on that?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'll take that. I mean, if you think Intellex is, if you were to break down what Intellex is trying to do, Intellex is trying to build, or has built, a cross-blockchain agent interoperability and coordination management capability. And I think about, Taylor, what you said in response to Mike's first question, which was how all of these shifts or changes in marketing are going to have a ripple effect on supply, on your category management, on your inventory, on your supply chain. And I think historically, the nature of business is you really have two different types of functions within an organization. You have those functions that are focused on generating demand, like sales and marketing, and you have those functions that are focused on satisfying demand. And those functions have always been out of sync. And I think if you don't have a secure way of allowing memory to exist across agents, so if you have sales agents that have memory and marketing agents that have memory, or in your last comment, Taylor, you have supplier agents and you have retailer agents, how are agents in the future going to share memory? Because there's certain things that you as a supplier don't want to have be part of this negotiation, to use the word, Taylor, that you just described. So you're going to want to be protective of the memory that your agents have, because that memory is part of something that represents your uniqueness, your trade secrets, it's your competitive advantage. And so thinking about cross-chain communication and cross-chain abstraction, thinking about near intents and how memory is exchanged between agents that might, your sales agents in an enterprise and your marketing agents and your supply chain agents, or the example that you gave, which is agents that are retail agents and supplier agents. There's going to be a negotiation as these agents try to work together, and securing memory, whether it's memory about expertise or reputation or experience, is going to be absolutely critical. And that's actually that from the very beginning is the problem that we've been struggling to figure out how to solve, and to solve using the kind of technologies that Alex and Dylan, I think, have described and are instrumental to getting enterprises to be able to effectively work together. Whether you're talking about internal to the enterprise or external to the enterprise, that negotiation process, Taylor, that you spoke to, I think is absolutely the challenge.
Another question in this area: how do you deal with conflicting updates and versions, divergent views in a system, and how do you balance latency and consistency and access control? That's a lot of questions, but obviously when you get multiple parties together, you've got classically different views. How do you harmonize them in the system?
Who's that to, Mike?
It's to either.
That's a good Alex question. Yeah. What do you think about that? Alex
is looking very challenged as he's thinking through this, but he's going to come up with a great answer.
Yeah. So there are existing solutions for the ordinary like software development lifecycle for all of these challenges, and this is something that is natural that we see. In the agentic world, with the updates of the system, I'm thinking of this as a protocol that allows agents to communicate with each other and negotiate, as well as connect to these negotiations the value transfers, right? Because usually when there are two systems that are interacting with each other, then one of the system has an intent to do something, and then the other one is fulfilling this intent, and usually what is connected to this is a payment. So these things need to be taken care of, and I'm thinking of this as somewhat like of the internet, right? When there are websites that are served by the servers, and then there are people who are trying to search this internet, and though proper protocol for the cross-agentic discoveries and interactions. This protocol is in the process of the development, including by the teams like Intellex. Then I do believe that all of the existing knowledge from the IT would be enough to figure out these complicated things. Clearly, there are challenges in place, but I'm pretty sure that human researchers, even before AI, will be able to figure it out.
Right. It's not like the
You know, I think
situation exists, right? So exactly. Yes, Eric.
I was just going to say, Alex, what's interesting about what Near Intense does, from my point of view, especially as I sort of bridge the technology with the business side, is the kinds of agent-based solutions that I've worked with and deployed, whether it's in the retail environment or in government. You may have multiple agents that are all competing to complete a task, and you end up paying those agents based on the contribution that collection of agents has made, right? So if you have 5 agents, one agent does a really good job, they get paid a little bit more. Some of the agents get paid a little bit less because they didn't do a good job. And I think your point about payment and how you manage those transactions across multiple agents working together to negotiate, as we've been talking about, is absolutely critical, which is one of the reasons why I think Near Intense as a technology platform, in addition to what we're doing at Intellex, becomes really, really important when you start when teams of agents or multi-agent systems get deployed within these enterprises.
Thanks. Hey, just for the audience at large, we have a very large audience, which is great. But I just want to let you know that you can put questions into the chat component. So please drop them in, and we'll start covering them just in a few more minutes. So please get your questions coming in. I'm going to hit one last block of questions, and it is around cross-company ecosystems and workflows. We talked a little bit about it, but wherever suppliers are feeding manufacturers, who then in turn are feeding distributors, who then get to retailers, that's an interesting ecosystem. And so, from the business side, I'm thinking, Gary, that's a challenge, but it's a huge opportunity if that can be brought together. Talk to a little bit about that.
So I think you're right. It is a massive opportunity, but I think and certainly many challenges. I think the primary challenge today comes back to data, and it's the quality of data, how that data is organized, so that information can be leveraged across the supply chain, right? Across all those steps,
right?
From manufacturers, suppliers, distributors, retailers, even to the end shopper, right?
Yeah.
So I would point to data as being the big blocker initially.
Got it. Charles.
I think it gets to, if companies are not yet, I hope they are, but get into AI, the amount of feedback that comes back, the amount of capabilities, I think, exceed what people's expectations are with these platforms. And I think there's tremendous opportunities to streamline those, but also sharing those insights as you're developing. I think a lot of platforms are being made available with AI, but I think it's important to, as you all have pointed out, keep it within the ecosystem of the environment, get everybody's feedback into all the different agents they're using in one spot, so that the organization can own that and kind of see the parallels.
So we've got data, and then I think the notion is, once you start looking at workflows across a complicated ecosystem, you're able to look at it, evaluate the efficiency of it, and strip out a lot of redundant processes here. And again, lower cost, more efficient, faster decisions, less inventory investment. Nick, what's your point of view?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think the two points. Number one, operationalizing these solutions in the real world is one of the biggest obstacles. We can develop great agents that do an excellent job of predicting or forecasting or transacting, but all of the noise in the system, whether it's data or the people in the process, not that the people are the noise, but people are, people buy from other people, and the negotiation where it's not just a transaction, where there's a negotiation. Think of like a seasonal buy proposal from a vendor to a retailer. And that's not just a yes or no, that's a negotiation. We can automate the inbound part of the seasonal buy proposal and make it easier for the retailer to evaluate it, to assess it, but there's got to be a response. And so I think operationalizing in the real world, and then making room for people to, the human in the loop, to take the part that we've automated to the next step with their trading partner.
Got it. Hey, Taylor, I'm going to ask an extension of that question for you. In the digital world that you played in, obviously bidding for ads is an interesting process, right? Do you think there's a bid process that will exist based on what Nick's talking about in terms of negotiation? And what are the implications for merchandisers?
Well, I think yes, and I think that there's the potential that it's very different than what we think of today, right? But, these agents can interact with each other without the human baggage with which humans interact with each other. But to everybody's point, humans still need to be in the loop, right? The boss of this whole thing needs to be a human. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to explore with what's possible with AI, and then discover or work from there to determine how we need to change our culture and change our business processes to be able to get the advantage. Because the advantage will not be achieved if we're going to stick to old notions of negotiation instead of working toward new notions of negotiation. And, when Doug McMillon says that every job at Walmart is going to be impacted, I hope that his associates are listening closely, because it's not just that their job is going to be impacted. Their job is going to change. The way that they do things is going to change, and the culture associated is going to change. So I don't know how directly I'm answering your question, Mike, except to say that everything's on the table. And if we take it off the table, we're going to miss the opportunity that exists with this technology.
Right. So in many ways, it's a complete opportunity to look at the entire data flows, entire processes within that big ecosystem, just to see exactly where you can change. And so getting started is key. I'm going to talk from get the conversation going with the technology folks on this. In this kind of complex context, what are the quote coordination primitives that are necessary to be able to drive success? Eric. Eric looks like
I would say, maybe I'll answer the question by sort of throwing it back to the people on the business side, which is, in your experience, are there partners in the or are there either suppliers or retailers or distributors that are in an ecosystem in which the reputation of that partner is negative? And that may sound like a very sort of obvious question, but I think for many of the people on the technology side that might be listening, the idea that there are some, say, distributors that have a great reputation and some distributors that have a lousy reputation, or suppliers, by the same thing, that those are the conditions that exist in the normal kind of business process that we're talking about. And as a result of that, is reputation or trust a really valuable or important primitive, besides, I think, the transaction primitive that Alex, the payment that Alex talked about earlier. In my experience, reputation and trust is absolutely critical to bring about the kinds of things that you're talking about. So I'd sort of throw it back to the panel and say, Taylor or Nick or Charles, Gary, do you agree with that sentiment that that there is a wide distribution of trust and reputation that comes into play when you start talking about these types of transformations.
Without question. I mean, it is obvious, but it cannot be ignored.
Got it. I think everybody agree with that. Alex, the question for you is, how does Calyx extend Intellex beyond one project and create a broader ecosystem that's going to be successful?
Yeah, so this is something that indeed kind of the question kind of a little bit above this, above the Intellex. So for Calyx, is obviously the most important thing is to be a neutral place where people are able to access different opportunities. And what we're trying to do is we are trying to collaborate with existing projects who are looking for the launching of their tokens, and helping them to shape this stuff and also convey neutral information to everybody on our platform. And then there was one of the questions from the community around the roadmap for Calyx. And the way how we are looking at this is that there is no necessary just a single need for having a platform where everybody needs to come and participate in. Instead, the token generation events are extremely important points in the life cycle of any project. And for many of the projects, they already have the product available at that moment in time. So the best possible thing that we can do at this point is to onboard users to this product. So from that standpoint, we are working towards the direction of wrapping Calyx into the API that can be used by any party. And this API, on top of this API, the solution can be integrated inside of any front end. What it means is that, for example, the token sales can happen potentially directly inside of the products that are delivered by the project teams, which would be an amazing achievement from my point of view. And this is like a step towards platform, like making Calyx like a platform. That's where we are looking into.
Got it. I'm seeing a lot of questions coming up here. One is, by the year 2030, how far do you think agentic AI will impact organizations? I'm going to go to Eric on this first. So it's not the next 3 to 5 years.
I think we've already talked about this in a lot of different ways over the last 50 minutes, and that happens to be that we're talking about fundamental transformations in terms of how businesses work together, how demand satisfaction and demand generation are synchronized within an enterprise. I think it's going to be fundamental. But I'd love to hear what on the business side what people are seeing as well.
Taylor, take a shot at that, and I'm going to go to the next question.
Well, I do think that's at the crux of what we've been discussing the entire time. And I think that this time things might actually change. In the past, the transformation opportunity and impacts have been so large that every person has begun to realize in the business that they need to leave everything on the table and be open to changes across the board. And I think that this is what's going to happen. I do think that 10 years from now, you'll look back and you'll say, wow, we think about business and we operate businesses in a way that is completely different in many respects to the way we use it. And that's what's so exciting about all this, at least to me.
So there are two elements of the one question. One is, how much of technology will be AI driven? And we're saying it's going to be transformational. The second question that's being asked is, well, what are the role of humans in this by the year 20 and 30? What kind of role should they play? And I think earlier, Eric, you talked about who's the boss of this. Gary, what's your view on this?
So I hope humans will remain involved in certainly a lot of the key decision areas, but increasingly, I think we will see human beings move to places where they can have greater impact, either, engaging with shoppers, for example, in retail, in the physical store, or even online, and where, more strategic decisions need to be made, and so on.
Got it. Thank you. Nick, your point of view on that?
Yeah, I think I'm a big proponent of human in the loop. Although I do agree, Taylor and Eric, with what you're saying about how a lot of the transactional components will be driven by agents without too much human intervention. But I think in building those, that institutional knowledge, of the enterprise and the folks who live there, who work there, and run these processes today, even if they're transforming, that knowledge will get built into the product. It will get built into the workflows that are automated. And I think also a key thing, we've talked about data, that knowledge gets built into the grounding data, for at least for the use cases that we're looking at. We rely a lot on data catalogs and a knowledge base that's industry specific to make sense out of the data that the agents are using. Right. It's fundamental, and to really doing an accurate, coming up with an accurate result consistently at scale.
Got it. One of the questions that popped up regarding trade and allocation of funds in an autonomous context, what role will Calix play in risk management, Alex?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I cannot say that there will be a direct impact for the AI agents risk management on the Calix side. However, the thing that is important here is to talk about, especially if we're talking about allocation of the funds, trade and strategies. The important piece here is making sure that the decisions that are made by the AI agents, these decisions are private. And from that standpoint, the important piece of NEAR's technology stack is called the shade agents. This is a technology that allows people to launch their AI agents in a what is called trusted execution environment setup, which does not allow the operator of the hardware where this agent is working to look inside of this agent, to look into the memory of this agent. So the shade agent stack is going to be a very important piece of making these agents that are able to trade and allocate funds. And this is going to bring much more, quite a lot of this. This would bring the functionality of autonomy for this agent, so they can make these decisions, and this would enhance the robustness of the solution, because of some reason the operator is unable to run the agent, well, then this agent just can't be migrated to other operator without sharing the data in a fully encrypted manner. So right. This will improve the robustness of the system.
Got it.
Alex, is the assumption there, and I think this is an important point that you're making, which is you're really speaking to the notion of how agents can perform together in a highly decentralized and decoupled and private way, right? And I think that as we think about from an Intellex perspective, think about the role of decentralization in a business ecosystem. I think that's going to become even more and more critical. In other words, what frequently I've seen in my discussions with people is this idea that decentralization only applies to consumer AI control or ownership, but I also see huge opportunities to use and leverage decentralized technologies in the kinds of business ecosystems that we've been talking about in today's.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. I'm absolutely agreeing with you. Just take a look at
Yep.
modern businesses. Nobody is running their own data centers, but everybody are going into the cloud and renting out servers that store our secrets. We do not have, Aurora does not run an email service. We trust Google to have this thing in there. And the same thing with AI agents. They are just another type of the infrastructure. And with the trusted execution environments, with the shade agents, with the technologies of the modern day, we are able to guarantee that the information is not going to be leaked. It is going to stay private. And neither Google nor my competitors are going to figure out my sensitive information. This is extremely important. And this is also very convenient. That's why cloud is what we see as a standard for compute at the moment. That's why decentralized AI is not something only for the humans. This is a technology for enterprises as well.
Absolutely.
Great comments. There's a question here that talks about Calyx and the competitive landscape relative to Calyx. And the question is, will Calyx's infrastructure accelerate this process from human-led to AI-based economics?
I would not say. It's mostly on the NEAR side and Intellex side to accelerate this transition into the AI. What Calyx is able to do is to help AI agents to transact together with NEAR intents. And I think this is a straightforward unlock, and we're going to see lots of efficiency gains out of this opportunity.
Got it. So I'd like Eric to respond to that, because it's almost a tee up for somebody to request his email for help. So what's your point of view on that, Eric?
My point. Well, I was actually intrigued by a question that was just that. I think there's two pieces to it. One, there was a question that was just posed, which has to do with the distinction between memory and intelligence, which I think is a really interesting one and an important one to consider, and it relates back, Mike, to the question that you just raised. But let me answer this question about memory and intelligence, because I think this is something that people are just now beginning to think about when they think about how agents or multi-agent systems work together. The way that I would draw the distinction between memory and intelligence is the act of being able to solve a problem and resolve a problem in a novel way or a novel environment. You could think about it as sort of the librarian in a library. They can help you find a book. Memory is the actual knowledge on how to solve that problem. It's not the infrastructure necessarily in solving the problem. So it's like the books in a library. So librarian and books in a library. And I think especially in the kind of decentralized enterprise environment that we've been talking about over the last hour, and realizing that there's going to be new forms of business collaboration, both within an enterprise and outside of an enterprise, Calyx is going to have a really important role in being able to there's so many. There was an earlier question about what are the primitives and what are the kinds of transactions that need to occur, or the messages that need to occur between agents. And I think that I'm hoping that Calyx will help accelerate our ability to begin to stack those transactions through the kinds of partnerships and through the kinds of projects that Calyx is bringing, and to be able to solve both the memory and the intelligence kinds of problems that we could talk about for hours, I guess. Sure.
Well, we've talked for an hour, so this has been a great session. Thanks for everybody participating. In summary, though, I think they've got widespread view that there's huge opportunity. The notion that it's smart to get started now to be able to drive workflow efficiencies, reduce cost, and grow sales. There's to some extent a view, given a lot of conversations that I've had, that this is not about competitive advantage. It's going to be about survival for some countries. And things are moving so fast. If you don't keep up to date, you're going to be a dinosaur very quickly. And I think we've outlined to people what the benefits are from the Calyx or NEAR and Intellex proposition, that it's a great way to be able to get started. So I'm sure people, if they want to get in touch with us, just leave us your email or reach out. We'd be happy to work with you all. Thanks so much for your time, everybody.